Hello and good evening, my friends, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. This is the PM evening edition of Painting in Your Pajamas. I'm super excited to be here this evening with all of you to continue our journey through these gratitude journaling prompts. And I'm slowly working my way through all of them as I have time and opportunity. Here's a few of the first pages and drawings that I've done so far. This was yesterday morning's journal. Good morning, Judy. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. And today, what I wanted to focus on was some intuitive collage. And as I was kind of looking ahead at the prompts and deciding, which prompt would feel really fun to engage in some intuitive collage, I decided to focus in on the prompt, how have your life experiences shaped the wise and resilient human you are today? So woman, man, trans, non-binary, we're all human beings. And so I'm thinking that is really settling into the shared human experience, and that our shared experience, thank you, Marion, welcome, welcome. And the shared human experience leads us to learn a lot of different lessons across our lifetime. And so I have way more collage images than I need. And so I grabbed just a few to kind of inspire my creative process and to start to think about some of my life experiences. And I loved this silly little image here because it reminds me of a few different things. It reminds me of those teenage years when, everything felt embarrassing and new and all kinds of things were happening in groups, right? Like, we seem to sort of travel in packs here. And I just thought this image was really, hi, Gail, welcome, welcome. I thought this image was humorous, right? And here's another version of that one as well. I love these silly little cartoons. So this one kind of represented some of those teenage years. And I want to start before I dive right into the creative process and say welcome. I'm glad you're here. If this is your first time stopping by, and I really loved this one where I can't tell if she's cutting her crown off or putting her crown on, but I kind of loved this kind of funky image as well, but I almost feel like I want just this kind of mirror image here. Good evening, Nancy. Welcome, welcome. So painting in your PJs is all about how we can use our creativity as a powerful tool for personal expression, but also for personal growth and for self-discovery. So sometimes we can get really stuck in overthinking, stuck in our heads. I often find that the women I work with, hi everyone, hi Sandy, good evening Leslie, that the women I work with are often asking, who am I? That in midlife, and most of my clients tend to be anywhere from their late 40s all the way into their late 70s. And we seem to have this shared loss of purpose, loss of identity, and we're in the question of who am I? But that question, who am I, and that search for identity is one that occurs throughout our lifetime. And what I love about intuitive collage is that it's a great way to sort of bypass our traditional ways of thinking about things and access some of the unconscious beliefs and stories that are circling around and oftentimes form these limiting beliefs about who we are or who we can be or what's possible. And I love exploring on Painting in Your PJs Live with Minette a variety of different media for creative process. And art journaling is one of my favorite formats for that exploration. I loved this little girl. Looks like me, although my hair was never red. I did have pigtails when I was in elementary school till my mom cut them all off when I was in third grade, I think because I hated to have my hair brushed. And I'm wondering if she's giggling at something in class or something that she's writing. But I had a note from a first or second grade teacher on an old report card that said talks too much in class. So that one felt like that part of that journey. So I started to just look for a variety of different images that would kind of represent the different stages of my life that help to contribute to the way that I perceive myself today. This image is funny, it's silly. I don't like that they're laughing at the dragon, but somehow the dragon kind of reminds me of Puff the Magic Dragon. But there's this, and maybe I'm the dragon in this picture, and the cat and the mouse are laughing, and the little girl is pointing and laughing, and the dragon is kind of, oh no, oh no. And I was always a chubby kid, right? And so there's something here that feels like me in this dragon image in my experience. So that one needs to go in this pictorial journey of resilience. So I pulled this one out as well. I think I always wanted to be glamorous like this. This reminded me of me and my cousin Lainey, who I was super close to growing up. We were only a few months apart. So, that sisterhood connection starting very early in life. And we spent a lot of time together until we graduated from high school and kind of went on our different life path and journeys, but we still stay in touch across the years and the miles. So maybe that one. And I just loved this silly bear image, and it reminded me again of being a kid, lying in the grass, doing cloud gazing. Also reminded me of my deep connection to nature and love of animals has always been a big part of who I am growing up. I had rabbits, I had a cat, I had a horse. My parents had kennels and we raised hunting and show dogs. We had goats at one time. I had parakeets at one time. So animals have always been a hugely important part of my journey. I never loved science, but something about this woman and the beaker and the experimentation spoke to me. I also found this paper left over from some other workshop with a beautiful poem by Emily Dickinson, Hope is the Thing with Feathers That Perches in the Soul. And if you know anything about me at all, you know I love poetry. This one felt like the judge in all the times that I have felt judged. This was part of another collage. I loved this bird in this little doorway, but I don't know if it's feeling like part of this journey. I loved this woman on the beach here with her arms raised. I've had many experiences like that. So if you're creating along with me, what I want you to start thinking about is thinking about your response to that prompt. What are the experiences? What are the experiences that have shaped the wise, awesome Gail? Me too. I love that poem. What are the life experiences that have shaped you into the wise and resilient human you are today? And you might choose to just do some writing about the prompt. You might choose to do a mixed media painting. I'm opting for collage because I'm curious about the story that all these images are going to tell me when I put them together. I loved having a bike as a kid. I had the banana seat with the handlebars with all the ribbons on the handlebars. I think this one had some words in it. There's some beautiful fruit. So this one is a lovely image of a woman in meditation that feels related maybe to my spiritual quest, using what Spirit puts into our path to grow that feels connected. So maybe a couple of words. I don't often, when I'm doing intuitive collage, I tend not to use a lot of words. Oh, that's a good one. Retiring her judge. Good morning. Good morning, Blanca. Me too. That was why I picked it this evening. And then I grabbed just some random collage papers to maybe make a background. I've always loved to travel. I've lived in a lot of different places. So I grabbed a bit of a map. I love music. I was in marching band as a kid. This is a gel print that I had fun one day doing a bunch of gel printing with my mom. This one is really interesting. It is obviously a part of a frieze that was painted on a wall somewhere, and it's Alexander at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. But I don't know about you, it is like a kind of shorthand. That's a great way to put it. And for me, this image represents the strife in my life, right? The different battles that I've had to wage both within and without. Life hasn't always been perfect and easy. And I love, love, love. I love gel printing. I love intuitive collage. I loved this little boy, looked like he was connecting to nature. I love this little girl playing a hide and seek. So I've got all the way from childhood to adulthood, this sort of steampunk image of a woman I loved and felt much more like me today, with all of the different parts and pieces coming together, but a lot of light and energy shining out from the heart. So I'm thinking this one might be the centerpiece image, but we'll see. Some more collage paper, some pretty butterflies, another baby bear. I have way more images than I need to fill this one page in my journal. And I grabbed some matte medium as well as a glue stick. I've got a small pair of scissors here. And I'm almost thinking this is going to need to be a double spread in my journal. But we'll see. I'm going to start laying some things out and see where I get to on the journey. My friend Marion and I are both equally passionate about doing intuitive collage and really using it as that tool for personal growth. I'm really digging this image. And we are partnering on Friday, December 8th for a mini retreat called At the Threshold of Becoming. We'll be sharing more about that over the next week or so. And we'll be really looking at how this time of year is a interesting threshold. We're at an ending and a beginning, and I'm so excited. So more details coming. Marion can share more in the chat as well. And I love collaborating with other amazing teachers and artists. We're both soul collage facilitators and have just had a lot of fun coming up with some innovative new ideas. So lots of fun stuff coming to share later this year with you guys. And on Friday, I think I had showed maybe some journals one day last month, but I have a really fun another collaboration. Me too, Marion. Another really fun collaboration with three of my business besties who are all artists. Allie Manning from Vintage Page Designs in the Handmade Book Club, the artist Robin Marie Smith, and my dear friend Andrea Shebelou from Watch, Learn, Play and a Work of Heart Studio. We have created this really fun collaborative project called the Sisterhood of the Traveling Journal. And that is coming out this Friday. So if you're not on my email list, make sure that you stay in touch, or I'm going to put my Instagram handle in here. I'm so easy to find. I'm at, okay, it's not letting me type where because I'm leaning on the keyboard here. At Dr. Minette Riordan is my YouTube handle. It's also my handle for Instagram, and I'll be sharing about it on Instagram as well. So a couple of really, really wonderful collaborations coming up very soon. I'm loving the color of this one. And you notice that I'm just ripping and tearing the images. I often find that just tearing the images makes me go faster. Hi, Barbara. Welcome, welcome. And stops me from overthinking or getting too attached to things. Oh, that's an interesting, love all of those columns. This is at Delphi. So many juicy images. Don't want to lose this one here. And again, it just feels like this sort of intense battle image kind of represents some of the challenges of life, which it's an interesting, I think this one might even have to go across both of these pages. So maybe there's this sort of sense of things opening. These bright colors feel like opening and expansion. I think I'm also being drawn to bright colors because it is gray and cold here today. It has been damp and chilly. So this is an interesting color palette. So let's see if we can move some of those. No, that's that bright color there is just gonna. All right, I definitely feel like I want some map paper in here, and I'm working very quickly. Sometimes when we're working with intuitive collage, it's really easy to get very caught up in finding the right image, the perfect image, and being so careful and cautious with the placements of things. To me, that takes it out of the realm of intuitive collage and puts it squarely into the realm of intentional collage. And what I'm going for here is to bypass my thinking mind and really connect with the part of me that knows more than my conscious mind knows. And so the other reason I'm tearing again is I don't want to be attached, right? I don't want to be attached. So this crazy little judge really wants to be in here, but I am going to cut her out. You also notice as I'm working with these images that I'm cutting or tearing them away from their background and putting them onto a new, different background. This was probably one of the most important elements for intuitive collage that I took away from my soul collage training, was this idea when we start to take the images away from their representation and put them together in different ways, they take on completely new meaning, right? They take on the meaning that will speak to us. Yes, our intuition is so wise, and how often we fail to listen. How often we fail to listen. All right. I don't know why this fruit feels important, but I'm going to trust that it's important and add it to the journey. I've always loved fruit, and those aren't oranges. I think maybe they're persimmons, And as I look at them, they remind me of a bowl of oranges. And growing up in South Texas, I had one aunt who would go down to the valley of Texas and bring back huge, huge bags of fresh oranges and grapefruit right off the trees from South Texas every fall and winter. And that always felt like such a treat. Such a treat. All right. So definitely interesting bits and pieces coming together here. I'm starting to slow down, sort of look at what I've got. I think retiring her judge, this has been a huge, huge part of my personal journey. And I grew up in a family where, in the South, in Texas, where the everybody was so judgmental and there was so much emphasis all the time being put on appearance above all else. And I remember coming to a point, probably not until my 30s, and I was a victim of being judged, but I was also absolutely a perpetrator of judging others. And it still happens. I'm not perfect. I don't believe that any of us are perfect. But I started to notice when I was having those judgmental thoughts, especially towards others. And so I became very proactive in paying attention and becoming conscious of those judging thoughts, so that when I heard myself, if I saw a woman, walking down the street, and in my mind I'm thinking, oh my God, what is she wearing? Like I could just hear my mother's voice in my head at that moment. And I would pause and just apologize, right? This is all happening within me. I'm not saying anything to that person at all, but I'm having to really pay attention to how much of that energy resided within me and resides within me to this day. And the more that I can stay connected to the energy of unconditional love of self and others, then the more I can retire that judge, that critical part of me that wants to point fingers and condemn and or condescend to others. I knew that I was going to have more images than I would possibly have room for. I'm loving this little inner child corner over here is coming together. This also feels like part of that judging story, and I feel like I have that here. Although I'm totally okay with images hanging up outside of my journal as well. I think I need some more pieces of the map there. And this one just tickles me, right? It just tickles me. There's something there again, and making sure that that journey and all the different times in my life when I have been afraid or startled or worried or shocked, right? It represents that journey, and yet she's here kind of holding space in the center. And I'm wondering if maybe that's going to get tucked behind there a little bit. We have this nice little sort of peaceful corner up here. Sometimes they come together really quickly, and I love to just start laying them down in this way. And then I'll take a picture of it so I can swoop them all off and then begin to glue them down. And again, this is not a process about making art or making something that's beautiful and pleasing to the eye. This is very much about making something that is about my journey, that is focused on the process, not on the product. And I feel that way about most of my painting and creative practice. And yet sometimes I get really attached, right, to that outcome. And I'm not tonight, right? I'm looking at this journey and I feel like I'm just kind of in this interesting space of trust. I'm kind of feeling like maybe she's going to be over here on the side and flip up a little bit. So this one feels like she wants to be on here somehow as a some part of the journey, but it still feels like there's this sort of coming into my own happening over here, my connection to spirit, my connection to everything on the planet, my connection to nature is very present here as well. My love of travel and that representation of having lived in a lot of different places. So this feels, it feels good. I'm probably going to stick a little bit more of that map paper over here. Thinking. Maybe fill in some top of those lines there. I still have a little bit of that battle imagery. So now I'm just sort of pausing to look. And now I think that, I only need one part of that image there. So that is feeling good. And I'm curious as you're working along with me and you're thinking about this beautiful prompt. I need some of these butterflies. What have been those life experiences that you have, that feel like you have contributed, that feel like, what am I trying to say? The life experiences that have contributed most to who you are today. So I am definitely in many ways a product of the time and the place in which I was raised. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, in a kind of sort of Catholic family. It was interesting, both of my grandfathers were Catholic, but both of my grandmothers, so I think my dad's mom was Methodist, and once my mom's dad, my grandfather, passed away, I don't think Granny went to church again. It was not her thing, but it was very important to my mom's dad. So my mom went to private Catholic school, so I went to private Catholic school, right? So just thinking about how we're a product of time and place. And then, of course, there were all the experiences that I had once I was out of the house and on my own, and all the many, many times that things happened that were unrelated to my family. Good, all the good things, as well as all the challenging things. I have learned so much from the places I have traveled in this country and outside of this country. I have learned so much from all of the different places that I lived. And it seems like we're in this very warlike energy. It doesn't seem like we are in this very warlike energy globally right now. And it feels like it's important to honor that past and the present and the ongoing battles that seem to be taking place globally, because it has an impact and an effect on us. Thank you, Gail, for being willing to share that. And I think the path to healing that is just to start to notice when you're being that way. I really love the Hawaiian Ho'opono prayer, which is all about just, forgiving yourself and asking for forgiveness. And it's a great one to just sort of do privately to yourself when you feel those moments of judgment and criticism of others. All right, this is feeling very busy, and in some ways, the busyness shows that sort of chaotic 58 years of experience, right? Like this is a lot of experience. And this, I think, in some ways really shows the depth of some of those experiences. And so this almost feels like it's kind of part of this one. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to decide about those two. And normally I would take a picture, but I am trying to record this video on my phone too. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take all these off and try to put them all back in more or less the right places. And then when I do that, something magical will happen, and things will end up in a maybe a slightly different location, and the story will continue to grow and evolve. But I'd love to hear from others who are watching the replay. If you're watching the replays, put replay in the comments. Let me know that you stopped by. Appreciated those of you who have been doing that this week. And if you're here live, what are you working on this evening? Are you working on collage? Are you doing some journaling with these prompts? What is it that each of you is focused on? So I love hearing from others while I am in this creative practice and process. That one's almost as fun on the back side as it is on the front side there. All right, get my oohoo stick. And I also wanted to just share for a minute about my program, Your Midlife Renaissance. Registration is open right now for the last time this year. I'm going to stick the link to that in the comments. It's also in the description of the video. And it's a program that is all about understanding where we've been in order to get more clarity on where we're going. It's really designed for people who are questioning who they are, what their purpose is, why they're feeling stuck. I have an amazing community of 20 women currently, and it keeps growing, growing, growing. And I have been so pleased with the work and the connection and the community and the clarity that we've been able to get. On what's next. Midlife is a time, and I would say, you know, the women are 50s to late 70s, and the experience seems to be the same, this idea of who am I? What's my purpose? How do I stay relevant at any age and stage? And what do I want my contribution to be? You know, once our careers end, if you were in one career for a long time, I've been in many careers already in my lifetime, but you know, once we sort of officially retire, we can begin to feel invisible. And I think it's so important to remember that focusing on lifelong learning and contribution will keep us all youthful for a lifetime. People are working on collage, postcard swap, that sounds fun, deep into tearing magazines apart. Oh my gosh, you can tell I do a lot of that ahead of time, so that when I sit down to make collage, I don't get caught in that. It's interesting what images grab you. I love that, Marian, even if you don't know what they mean in the moment, like that little bowl of fruit for me, for sure. Blanca's just hanging out tonight. You thought you'd be done with babysitting. Yep. And I love, Gail, what you said that you're working on the collage, but we'll journal later. So when I am doing a painting practice, I will often write first and journal, and then paint over the top of it or beside it. But today, what feels important is to do the collage first And then I will do the journaling later because, like Marion said, we often don't know what it is that feels important or why we're selecting an image or what the sort of journey is going to look like. And so for me, it feels with intuitive collage important to do the collage first. So I'm not overthinking or dictating what it's going to say and what it's going to mean. So I will let this collage sit overnight and then I will come back later and look at it again and ask some questions, bring that prompt to bear one more time and decide what is the story that this collage is revealing. And Nancy says, love to work on collage and small journals. Awesome. I love that. For this gratitude journal, I love working in small journals, big journals, pretty much all size journals, but this one, I felt like I wanted the spaciousness to really be able to paint and write. Plus, I absolutely adore these Hanamula sketch diaries. Make sure we get all these edges stuck down. All right. Now I got to start to remember. I know that one is going to be sticking up off the top of the page. And this one, it makes me sad, right? Like I feel pretty emotional about this big dragon being laughed at uproariously by the little girl and all the other animals. And I just randomly clipped this out of some, recycled children's book, so I don't even know what the story was about or what the words were about. But there's something there that's very sad that reminds me of how kids tease each other and laugh at each other. And my stepdad was definitely one of those people that his teasing always had that edge of criticism and meanness. It's like what he thought was funny for a sensitive 13-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl, I did not think it was funny at all. So there's something there about that feels like some of my resilience or my unwillingness to show my emotions stems from having been teased. All right, there's something interesting about the juxtaposition of this poem and this judge. That's very interesting. And as I'm laying these images down, just noticing how they're just repositioning themselves a little bit. New stories. I'm seeing different connections, putting them just in slightly different ways. And again, when I'm working with intuitive collage, I don't always have this many words, but this one, I think in response to the prompt, it felt like the words wanted to be there. So I've got some words on here that I think will then guide some of that journaling. I love this little giggly girl with the pigtails. I remember visiting my grandmother shortly before she passed away, and she shared about how giggly my cousin Elena and I were, that was the memory that she had, that as little girls we were always giggling about something. And it's so true. And then I wonder and think, what happened to that giggly little girl? Where did she go? What shifted or changed? And there were a lot of things that happened. My parents got divorced. My house burned down when I was in the seventh grade. That was after my mom was already remarried. And so many of us have such a variety of life experiences that inform who we are now and how we show up and carry ourselves in the world. All right, interesting. So things are fitting together differently. And I love that. So I love that they're coming together now that I'm gluing them down. Might make room for some other things to come in. So definitely some interesting stories emerging on the page. And just sort of intuitively, right? There's this like sort of childhood here, like I can feel the flow of the journey. I certainly giggle now more than I think I did for a lot of years, Gail. I love that you still giggle. Yes, sometimes it does need to speak clearly and concisely. So true. You always have such great insights, Marion. Thank you. Good reminders. All right. I love this gel printing. Every time I pull out my box of gel prints that most of the time I forget to use, it just makes me want to pull out my gel plate and do more because it's so fun, but then I don't always end up using them. All right, let's get this battle scene in here. As I'm looking at this and thinking about this, I'm noticing the horse here, and I had a horse growing up, and so if I were to think there was anything missing from this collage, it would be my a representation of my horse Blackie, who was a huge important part of my growing up. Let's see. I also, when I'm working with, even when I'm doing a more intuitive collage process like this, an old relationship showed up, bittersweet. I love you said oops. There are no oops though, right? It's all on purpose, right? It's all to bring up some insight. I do love using pieces of my own art, even in intuitive collage. So bringing in just these little bits of the color and gel printing here. Also a great way on this journey of becoming here on this page, a great reminder of the creative aspects of myself. I've always been creative, but I haven't been calling myself an artist for that long. And so there's, something to notice there about that creative part of my journey as well. I think I want this bigger piece here. And when you're working with intuitive collage, one of the things that always seems to take the longest for people and actually can be kind of the most distracting is getting caught up going through magazines. So I will oftentimes just sit in front of the TV or sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and pull images from magazines once they've been read, or if I, find some at a thrift store or something, I will sit and pull and trim images so that when I sit down to work, I can quickly flip through a selection of images and not be distracted by the magazine, because it's easy to get distracted by the articles and the words, and I want to be able to just dive into the process and the practice. And so for me, one of the ways to do that is to make sure, interesting, I'm going to end up, I think, covering up that battle image for the most part, but I know it's there. I know it's there. And I'm just going to let that be okay. I love her. So I'm definitely wanting to have a lot of her showing on the page. So I'm thinking about what Marion said about, an old relationship showed up, and I'm looking at this journey, and other than, my cousin Elena here, this is a very personal journey, and I could easily do another big spread like this one that represented the relationships that have impacted the woman that I become today, from, the ones that were positive, the ones that were challenging. I would have my parents and my spouse and my kids. And I have had, over the years, so many wonderful mentors and guides. I have had amazing friendships with other women and really challenging friendships with other women. So this one feels like it's showing the impact of all of my experiences, right? Rather than sort of those individual moments of experience. I think this was probably from an art journaling magazine at some point, and there was a whole series of these images that someone had created, and they were just fabulous. But something about the gears and the key and the heart represents that journey of becoming, that journey of becoming. And I think that's why I'm so in love with this new program, Your Midlife Renaissance, because it really is about that journey of becoming. And we never stop becoming, right? Until we die. We're always on that quest to become ourselves, to become the most authentic version of ourselves, and our sense of self changes. Really, with every decade, that sense of self changes. All right, to get my little... I'm still sort of fascinated about how I really needed to have the battle images on there to represent the strife, and they just ended up getting covered up by all of these other things here. And there's a lot of pride in the woman that I am today, and there's a lot of things from my past that are still in the way of maybe my next level of growth. Thank you, Marion. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the collaboration is called The Sisterhood of the Traveling Journal. We were inspired by the book The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. And so it is a collaborative journal project. And we want to really encourage others to find a group of sisters and create their own sisterhood of traveling journals. But we had so much fun with this project. I've never done anything like it before, and super excited to share it with everybody. All right, well, that one, okie dokie. So this got this luscious space. I feel like nice thing about working with glue stick instead of matte medium is that the images are movable for a little while. I feel like she's sort of sitting looking up at the moon here. And so for intuitive collage, I think it's great to use a glue stick so things are movable. And so what happened was all of a sudden I had this opening space to attach this image that wanted to be here, but I wasn't sure where it was going to go. And so there's this now arm cutting off the crown, which is kind of fascinating, right? I'm not sure what that means, but then when I lift that up, it feels like the real me is there underneath. But there's this image that a lot of times we wear, or maybe that I used to wear. Thinking. Not sure. So this one might even want to go on a tag that sits differently on the page. It feels like an important part of the story, but not quite sure where she's going to go. So what happens for me when I feel that way is I don't want to rush to have this piece or this spread be finished. All what I'm going to do is let her float around for a little while, right? Let her just float around for a little while. Actually, I kind of like her there as well, but it changes. The story changes depending on where she is on the page and what gets revealed, right? What gets revealed and what gets covered up. So she's going to be a traveling piece for a little while. She does not need to get stuck down right away. And I'm just going to look here and see maybe another little piece of the map over here to just fill in that white space a little bit. The maps feel very, very important to the overall image. Good night, Blanca. glue that back down, glue that down. So I will let this sit here tonight. If I can get that out of the glare a little bit, I will let this sit here on my desk. I'll clean up around it a little bit, but I won't think more about it tonight. I'll probably dream about it. And then I'm going to see how I feel about it when I come back in the morning. And sometimes stepping away is the best thing we can do from a piece of art in order to see more of the story. Right now, I'm still sort of caught up in all of the little parts, and where I feel like I'm in a moment where I need a little bit of distance, right? It's interesting. This is kind of in the center of the journey. There's a lot of good pieces. This doesn't feel like a complete story, but it feels like a part of the story, and it feels like a really lovely response to what are the experiences, life experiences that have shaped me. There's remnants of many life experiences that have shaped me into this sort of magical being here in the center. Thanks, Yvonne. Watching from TV, how fun is that? On the, for you mean for the live videos, Gail? No, they're different every day. So far, yesterday I painted this painting live. That one I did sitting in front of the TV. Last week I painted this one, which now looks really dark and could use some brightening. So I also did these fun little cartoons yesterday and then today. So it's different every day. So this month, throughout the month of November, I am working through most of the journaling prompts. I'm not going to be able to do, all of them live, but I'm working through the journaling prompts. And I see here's one, write about a role model or mentor in your life. So that would be another fun one to do collage around. And I'm looking ahead. Write about a book, quote, or piece of wisdom that has positively impacted your journey. You guys know how much I love poetry, so maybe tomorrow I will focus in on what popped into my head just now was Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. So maybe a fun quote from Big Magic. So maybe a painty page with an illustrated quote might be something fun for tomorrow morning show. So I'll think about that one overnight and when I get up in the morning. So you might think about a favorite quote to bring for our art journaling page tomorrow. And what I love about art journaling is no two pages look the same. So I have no idea, where this journey through gratitude is going to take me, but it will be a varied journey, shall we say. As always, thank you so much for catching me live. Thank you so much for watching the replay. I so appreciate your time. If you enjoyed what I shared, please click that like button so we let other people know that this is a video worth watching, and I will be back again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time in my PJs for some morning painting in my PJs time. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. Rest well, my friends. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.